Today we're looking at a commentary script that's really trying to walk through a minefield. It's analyzing the online promotion of a drag queen caricature of a grieving widow, Erika Kirk. And it's really targeting the hypocrisy of the political factions who are amplifying it.
Yeah, this is heavy stuff. You can feel the heat coming right off the page. I mean, the author is furious.
Totally.
They're defending someone they see as a victim of this just cruel campaign, and they want to burn the perpetrators down.
But that's the thing. That anger, right now, it feels like it's actually sabotaging the argument.
It is. It is. It feels like the author is trying to vent their own disgust and persuade an audience at the same time.
And those two things are at war. Okay, so I think the first place to start is just that. The script's reliance on pejorative labels, on name-calling, it significantly undermines the moral high ground the author is trying to establish.
That's the biggest barrier to entry, right? As a reader, you're immediately hit with a barrage of insults.
Sicko
Sicko fans, dumb, deranged, whatever the hell he is. It's visceral, sure, but it forces you into this defensive crouch right away.
Well, but isn't that the point? I mean, it's an opinion piece. The author thinks these people are sickos. Why shouldn't they just say it?
Because it changes what the content is, you know? If you just want to preach to the choir and get high fives from people who already agree with you, then yeah, sure, call them sickos. But this script, it seems like it wants to expose hypocrisy to a broader audience. And when you use that language, you're asking people to join a mob, not a debate.
So it makes it feel less like a principled defense and more like just another internet beef.
Exactly. A petty factional squabble. And by dragging them down into the mud, the author gets dirty too.
And loses that authority.
You lose the authority. If the point is to show that these critics are morally bankrupt for mocking a death, you don't actually need to call them names.
Right.
You just need to show that their behavior is repulsive. There's a huge difference between saying, you are a monster, and holding up a mirror so the audience says, my God, that person is a monster.
Okay, so let's get concrete on how to do that. We have that phrase early on, Owens' cult of sicko fans. It's aggressive, yeah? But it's also, I don't know, it's easy for a listener to just dismiss.
It is. It's just haters hating. So to keep the punch without the slur, you have to be almost clinical.
Okay.
So instead of cult of sicko fans, try describing them by their actions. Something like, a specific subset of followers who seem willing to endorse cruelty just to score political points.
That sounds so much colder.
It is. It's observant. It paints a picture of a group that's lost its moral compass, not just you throwing an insult at them. It's like a diagnosis instead of a scream.
Right. What about when the script goes after the intelligence of the commentators? There's that line, he's just so dumb, I don't know how he hasn't been sued.
Yeah, that feels like a vent session, It's like a friend complaining to another friend at a bar. It just doesn't carry any real weight.
So how does a professional critic say he's dumb without, saying it?
You attack the competent. Try this. His arguments rely on sensationalism that teeters on the edge of defamation.
Teeters on the edge of defamation. Yeah, that sounds authoritative.
It implies legal liability. It implies that the speaker knows where the line is and sees this person crossing. It elevates you from some guy ranting in a basement to a commentator who's analyzing a serious risk.
There's another tonal thing that feels really jarring, especially given the context. We are talking about an assassination here. A woman's husband was killed. But then the script dismisses a character with sunshine. Good luck with it.
That one stood out to me too. It's condescending, sure, but it's also just way too casual. It's a total mismatch.
You can't go from discussing a murder to using pet names like Sunshine.
You can't. It trivializes the very tragedy the author is trying to protect. So if you want to dismiss this person's strategy, do it with some gravity.
So instead of sunshine, good luck,
use a drier dismissal, like this strategy is unlikely to yield the professional connections he seeks.
Oh, that cuts deeper because it attacks the outcome.
Exact. It treats the subject as a failed strategist, not just an annoying person. And it maintains the solemnity you need when you're talking about a widow and a funeral. You have to match the gravity.
Okay, so that brings us to the actual crime, the video itself. The material argues the video is vile, but I feel like there's a major structural gap. The decision to withhold the primary visual evidence, the video of the drag queen, it creates a disconnect for the audience.
Yes, this is the classic storytelling problem where the author is telling us how to feel instead of just showing us the reality.
Right.
The script says, I'm not going to show you the video because I think it is utterly vile. And then it describes it with these vague words like disgusting or mocking.
It's asking for blind trust from the audience.
It is. And in a critique, especially one accusing someone of something this heinous, mocking a funeral, the audience needs to be able to verify the claim.
Sure.
By hiding it, the author is, protecting the audience, but they're also insulating them from the reality of it. You just dampen the emotional impact you're trying to incite.
But I get the author's hesitation. I do. If the video is truly grotesque or they just don't want to give it more views, how do you handle that?
So if you absolutely cannot show the clip, your description has to be photographed. It can't just be, it's bad. You have to describe the mechanics of the video. Or, show a sanitized still image. You need to provide a receipt.
Okay, so instead of just saying it's vile, what does that actually look like in the script?
You describe the specific act. So don't say, mocking the grieving. Say this: the performer puts on a black veil and mimics the specific hand gestures Erika Kirk used at the funeral.
Oof, that's disturbing. I can visualize that instantly.
Exactly, and I don't need to see the video to understand the cruelty of that specific act. Mocking grieving is abstract. Mimicking hand gestures is concrete. It lands so much harder.
The script also mentions horrible, disgusting rhetoric from this Erika Quirk character.
Again, disgusting is subjective. What did they actually say? The author seems afraid to repeat the words.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be. Quote the specific jokes made about the assassination. If the drag queen made a joke about the weapon or the location, quote, let the words just hang there in the air. That silence after the quote will be louder than any scream of disgusting.
It's about stripping away the filter.
And analyzing the intent. Instead of just shielding the audience's eyes, dismantle the performance. This performance attempts satire, but it fails because it punches down at a victim of violence. That explains why it's morally wrong, rather than just labeling it gross.
Okay, so moving from the content to the people spreading it, there's an issue with how the targets are identified. It feels like the script conflates individual influencers with a broader political movement too broadly. And that risks alienating moderate listeners who might otherwise agree with the core defense of the widow.
Yeah, it's a precision issue. The text links specific commentators like James Lee and this Project Constitution channel directly to Candace Owens, calling her Candy and the radical right as if it's all one single entity.
It uses phrases like Candy Owens' network of influencers.
Right, which implies she's the CEO of this whole operation.
And it starts to sound like a conspiracy theory.
It does. Unless the author has the org chart or, the emails proving she ordered this, stating it as a fact just weakens the whole argument. A conservative listener who might actually agree that mocking a widow is wrong will hear Candy Owens' network, get defensive, and just tune out.
So the suggestion here is just to be more specific with attribution.
Exactly. You can highlight the hypocrisy without inventing some kind of management structure. You could say, these people claim to follow Owens, yet they're promoting content that violates the very values she claims to hold.
That seems much harder to argue against.
It is. It highlights the fracture in their logic rather than accusing them of some organized malice.
So let's try to rewrite that attribution. Instead of Candy Owens' network of influencers have decided, what could the author say?
Maybe something like, influencers who frequently align themselves with Owens are now sharing material that contradicts her stated value. You're not claiming a secret meeting took place.
No.
You're just observing public alignment and public contradiction. It's unassailable.
The script also has this observation that these conservative influencers are sounding more and more like a lib.
That's just lazy shorthand. It assumes lib equals bad. And therefore, if a conservative does something bad, they must be a lib. It's circular logic, and frankly, it's just boring analysis.
So, what's the better way to frame that alignment?
Explain why they're aligned. Don't just slap a label on. Try something like this. Their hatred for Erika Kirk has now eclipsed their political principles, leading them to amplify the very drag content they usually condemn.
That frames it more as a psychological obsession.
Yes. It suggests that personal vendettas are stronger than their political ideology, and that's a fascinating insight.
Yeah.
They act like libs is a playground taunt. Hatred eclipses their principles is a character study. It makes James Lee and Project Constitution look weak and unprincipled, which is far more damning.
And that also solves the generalization problem. If you say, the radical right is doing this, you're indicting half the country.
But if you say James Lee is betraying his principles, you isolate the bad actor. Writing is strategy. You want to build a coalition of people willing to agree with you, not push away potential allies with imprecise targeting.
Okay, now let's look at how this all fits together structurally. The feedback suggests the current structure is, well, it's a repetitive narrative loop, and it dilutes the emotional climax about the widow's actual work.
The pacing is frantic. It just bounces back and forth. We attack the critics, then we mention the drag queen, then we attack the critics again, then defend Erika Kirk, then back to the critics.
It's circling the drain. I think the comparison to the radical left is made like 3 separate times.
Right. It feels like the author is afraid to just let a point go. It's like an unedited stream of consciousness. And when you ramble, you lose momentum. The listener starts checking out because they're thinking, I've heard this point already.
So we need to streamline this into a linear progression. What's the logical path here?
A logical flow creates suspense and payoff. I would structure it in 4 distinct blocks. First, the event, the drag queen. What happened? Describe it coldly, clearly.
Okay.
Second, the amplification. Who is sharing it? This is where you bring in James Lee and Project Constitution. Third, the analysis. Why is this hypocritical? That's your horseshoe theory section. And finally, the defense. Erika Kirk's high road.
That effectively groups all the comments about James Lee and Project Constitution into one focused segment.
Exactly. Don't sprinkle them throughout the script. Put them under the microscope once, dissect them thoroughly, and then move on. It makes the critique feel heavier, more complete.
And crucially, this changes the ending. Right now, the script kind of ends with a mix of praising Erika and then cutting back to say, God doesn't like it when you go after a grieving widow.
It just muddies the water. You want to end on the high note. The script mentions she's busy building a great company and bringing people to Jesus. I mean, that is a powerful image. Constructive grief versus their destructive mockery.
So the advice is, do not cut back to the insults after that point.
Absolutely not. The final thought should be, while they mock, she builds. That is the mic drop moment. If you go back to calling them sickos after that, you drag the audience right back down into the mud just as they were looking up.
It feels like we're asking the author to just cut the filler that dilutes that power. The script is full of phrases like worse and worse and worse, like seriously and you don't say.
Those are verbal tics. In a written script, they just dilute the potency of the sentences. Worse and worse and worse is just lazy writing for escalating rapidly. Like seriously is just filler.
Cut them.
Cut them. Tighten the pacing. Every word has to fight for its place on the page.
It sounds like the transition we're really looking for is from a reactor to a narrator.
That is the perfect distinction. A reactor screams at the screen. A narrator guides the audience through the horror. The reactor gets views, maybe, but the narrator changes minds. This script has the potential to be a definitive takedown of this hypocrisy, but it needs to trade the tantrums for tactics.
And the author clearly has the expertise to do it. They know the players, the history. They even know the specific drag queen name. They have the facts.
The research is all there. They are standing in the middle of a construction site with all the best materials, marble, mahogany, steel. But right now, they're just throwing bricks through windows.
Right.
We want them to build the courthouse so they can put the bad actors on trial.
Building the courthouse allows you to prove the case. And that connects right back to the core argument of hypocrisy. The script claims people on the radical right are equally just as bad as those on the radical left. That's a huge claim.
It is. And to make it stick, you have to prove that the right is doing exactly what they criticize the left for. The script mentions they used to call out drag queens, and now they promote. That is the nugget of gold.
But it's buried.
It's buried under all the dumb and sicko comments. So the author should explicitly juxtapose the past statements with the current actions.
Use a timeline.
Exactly. 2 years ago, James Lee said X about drag queens. Today, he posted Y. You don't even need to add an adjective. The contradiction is the punchline. The listener fills in the blank with hypocrite. And when the listener realizes it themselves, it sticks so much harder than if you just shouted it at them.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Let's try to summarize the actionable suggestions for our listener. First up, the issue of tone.
Yeah, replace the ad hominem attacks like sicko and dumb with analytical descriptions of the behavior. Attack the logic, not the person. And remember the context. You are talking about a widow and an assassination. Keep the tone serious enough to respect the victim.
Okay, second, the handling of the evidence.
Don't just say, I won't show you. Describe the offensive content with clinical precision. The hand gestures, the veil, the specific jokes, so the audience understands exactly what's being criticized without needing to just trust your outrage.
Third, attribution.
Be precise. Avoid broad generalizations about networks that might alienate potential allies. Pin the bad behavior on the specific individuals and highlight their hypocrisy using a timeline of their own words.
And finally, the structure.
Linearize it, stop the loops. Go from the event to the promoters to the analysis and end on the defense. Let the widow's constructive grief be the final word, not the troll's nasty comments.
So, to the listener, we really encourage you to apply these edits. Take a pass at the script with a red pen, specifically looking for every time you used a name-calling adjective, and swap it for a verb describing an action. See how that changes the power dynamic of the sentence.
And definitely try that restructuring. Cut and paste the sections into that linear flow. I think you'll find the argument hits so much harder when it builds to a climax instead of just running in circles.
Submit the revised draft for a final review. We're excited to see the sharper, more persuasive version of this commentary.
Absolutely. It's a story worth telling, right?
That's all for this critique. Keep writing, keep refining, and we'll see you next time.